Welcome to The Art of Flow, a podcast that explores connecting with your body, mind, and soul via movement arts and creative exploration. Through conversations with movement artists, circus performers, flow artists, and fire dancers. My name is Morgan Dalgano, and I'm the creator and host of the podcast, a flow arts enthusiast and a life coach. Feel free to check out some of my other work with individuals looking to get unstuck and discover peace and energy at ignitevibrancy.com. And occasionally, I will bring coaching concepts into the artistic dialogues. The Art of Flow is a free public resource for creators, teachers, and supporters of the arts who are interested in flow arts and fire dancing. It is available for mainstream distribution on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play, YouTube, Stitcher, and at theartofflowpodcast.com. If you believe in a show that provides inspiration for artists and conversations on the creative process, please support the podcast on Patreon to keep it going. As a supporter, you can earn early access full-length interviews, submit questions for interviewees, be mentioned in an episode, and get a behind-the-scenes look at how the podcast is made. That's The Art of Flow if you're searching for it online. You can also follow the podcast on Instagram and Facebook to receive shorter clips of episodes, updates, and notifications when new episodes are released. In this episode of The Art of Flow, we will be talking with Sage Jacote. Dancing with fire and light for over 20 years, Sage has changed the flow arts world as we know it by teaching, performing, and inspiring around the world. She is the founder and artistic director of Sangre Del Sol, the longest operating fire and LED troupe in Austin, Texas. She has also applied her skills in directing, producing, dancing, and choreographing for not only Sangre Del Sol, but another Texas-based fire troupe, Solar Rain. With a background in hip-hop, West African, Middle Eastern, belly dance, Tai Chi, and Salsa, she likes to fuse these into her innovative fire and light tools and pyrotechnic effects to push the boundaries of modern dance performance. Years ago, Sage entered an international flow arts spinning contest through Home of Poi, and upon winning this contest, the director was so touched by her entry that he invited her to film an interview and feature her on the fire dancing and knowledge she has in an instructional video that is still widely used with fire dancers all over the globe. She has been featured in such videos as Circles of Light 2, The Fire All-Stars Volume 1, and Encyclo Poi Dia, and has been flown to many fire festivals to be a judge or a teacher. You can find her websites and links in the show notes below. She's on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and has websites for both Sangre Del Sol and Solar Rain. Welcome to The Art of Flow, Sage. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm really happy that I'm here. Thank you.
I'm curious to know, would you share with us why you were inspired to start fire dancing and what your flow story is?
I used to live in LA, and then when I moved to Austin, I live in Austin, Texas, I made a new group of friends, and I went to this little party. It was like a show and tell party where everybody was showing off what they did. And, people were doing poems and guitar and all that. And then all of a sudden everybody's like, we're going outside. And I saw this woman named Aurora. Her name's Aurora Jolene. And she started spinning fire poi. And that was the first time I had seen it, besides when I remember when I was little and I watched Grease, that movie Grease. There's a fire baton spinner in Greece, and I remember seeing it there too. And so I watched her do it, and I just was like so called to it and so drawn to it. I could feel it kind of calling my name, and so I went up to her and asked her if she could just teach me some stuff. And she was a traveler, so she was here for a bit, and then she taught me just a few poi moves. With like back then it was so old school. We had like these crazy wicks that we made out of like towel and wire and dog chain, and like whatever handles we could get our hands on. And so she taught me just a few moves, and then she left, and I just kept practicing and practicing. And it was really different back then because we didn't have internet. So I would just practice all the time. And then somebody saw me do it and invited me. This was my first gig to, it was so crazy. It was like a gig for 15 different top chefs from Italy, like being flown into Austin, Texas. And the guy was like, look, I need you to find some drummers and maybe like another fire dancer. And there was this other girl that had started close to the time I did. And so I invited her and got some drummers together. We didn't even really have a show. We were just like, we're just going to throw down, you know? And so we fire danced for these guys. And then afterward, they loved it. And then afterwards, they sat us at this huge table and served us like a 5-course meal. And I just remember being at that table going, this is amazing. I wonder if I could do this for a living. And it just sort of took me by storm as a career, like quickly. So it was really interesting and beautiful experience.
Wow, that's amazing for a first gig to perform for so many different people and also get to do it with another friend. And the fact that like afterwards you had this kind of gift exchange. You gave them a show, you shared fire with them, and they gave you the food that's their craft.
Yeah, it was so beautiful.
Also, now I'm really inspired to want to go and watch what was it? You mentioned the movie something
Greece.
Dance Grease. Yeah. I didn't realize that there was a fire baton spinning in there.
I hope I'm remembering correctly. I'm pretty sure it's at the end, and it's whenever they're have you ever seen Grease? Okay, so it's at the end whenever they're at that carnival. It's like the end of the school year. Yeah, it's really short little clip.
There's a lot of little secret hidden clips in popular media of fire spinning and Florence that before you get into it, you may not be aware or even register. And then afterwards, you're watching through things again. You're like, what? That was there the whole time.
Yeah, I've had that happen before. I don't remember that.
And in what ways has fire spinning and Florence impacted your life since that first performance?
Oh my gosh, how hasn't it affected my life is the question. Oh my gosh. So it really changed me a lot as a person, and I've been doing it for over 20 years. So I've been doing it a really long time. And over the years, I have learned so much and changed so much. And I definitely attribute it to definitely my fire dancing and flow arts and performance, like all of it. And one, it changed my body in ways that was so amazing because I just got strong and more coordinated and more balanced between my left and right side. And when that started happening, I really started noticing like my left and right brain starting to get balanced out between like my artistic and then like, you know, mathematical, scientific. And I really started noticing my relationships in my life changing and getting better because I was getting more balanced and having more understanding for humanity and compassion for people. And also it changed my financial independence, because before I was always just working some waitress job or 9-to-5 office job. And then when that just took me by storm, I got to be on my own time. I got to be my own boss, and I got to learn how to create a business. And it was just so perfect for me because I'm a very independent person and I don't like being under other people's time. And I also like variety. I don't like doing the same thing every day. And so it gave me all these things that I needed for my soul to be fed in all the ways it needed. And spiritually, it was really cool because I started learning about, you know, all the patterns the fire makes and what they're doing to our brain patterns. And it changed me spiritually, and it made me a much more humble person eventually. And it definitely helped me work through my anger. Like I was raised in a very volatile childhood, and I had a lot of anger because of it. And just, I think, passed down through my ancestry, women have a lot of anger that they're dealing with, you know? Yeah, and I just really kept spinning the fire and making those circles, and eventually it burned it all off for me. You know, I still have little things I'm working on, but it has helped me burn all the stuff that didn't serve me anymore, and it's been amazing. Oh yeah, and also community. Like I learned about community, and I learned how to work with people, and I learned how to communicate, because the more I started working with people, it taught me that I needed to become a better communicator, and definitely less angry and less judgmental, and you know, anyway, yeah.
It sounds like for you, fire has been transformational for your body, mind, and your spirit, and in very concrete ways. And I really love that you touch upon not just healing yourself, your own patterns, but also looking at intergenerational trauma, basically, or intergenerational. Yeah. And for women and for men, for all, especially people of different gender identities, sexual identities, different race, like there are layers and layers of history that are impacting our everyday lives that we're sometimes not even conscious of or aware of. And peeling back those layers can happen through the patterns that we make, through the way we interact with our body, and also through the way that we learn. I know for myself, relearning how to learn was a big part of the flow journey.
Yes, definitely.
And I actually heard mention on a different interview that you did of a conversation you had with a shaman about the way that our brains respond to the patterns of fire dancing. And I was curious to know if you'd be willing to share here or speak a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, I can, but I'm not the best person to break that stuff down. I'll talk a little bit about it. But I'm more like a feel person. I can like feel what's going on. So for me to like break it down scientifically, you'll probably have to call Zan Moore or something. He's really good at that stuff, or Nick Woolsey. Um, so for me, what she told me was that, well, first I was in Guatemala, and I was hanging out with a lady named Amarak, and she's one of the only woman shamans, like Mayan shamans there. Most of them are men. It's like boys club. So it was very special that she told me this, and she gave me my last name, and she told me, pulled me aside and said, this is this is what you're doing. And I had this performance in front of all these little kids, you know, and it was just really powerful. All these like Mayan kids in Guatemala. It was beautiful and powerful. And she pulled me aside and she said that, you know, because of the light attached to these things, it had something to do with the light and the patterns being put together. So depending on how intricate the patterns are or simple the patterns are, it kind of, with the light and the movement, goes through, I think she was saying it was like the pineal gland, or it just like goes through your eyes and through your registers into your brain. And it just like, it's almost like if you wanted to repattern the way you were thinking, or the way your body, like, you know, the way the functions of your body to be a higher vibration, just to shift it into a higher vibration.
That's really, really beautiful. I love that image of the light interacting with the patterns as it crosses space and into the minds of the viewers and those sharing a performance with you. I'm curious to know, what's your relationship with performance? Because you've been performing since the beginning, it sounds like. You got exposed to fire dancing, you got excited about it, you started learning it, and you were just offered this opportunity. You were offered this opportunity to perform and thought, how can I make a career of this? And you've been going since.
I've been going since. I mean, I've had small little breaks here and there, which are needed. But as far as my relationship with performance, it has been one hell of a journey. Like in the beginning, it was very exciting, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I, it was an avenue for me to express my creativity, to express a gamut of emotions, to have a variety of different characters I could start channeling, which I definitely feel like I'm a channel, and I'm very thankful for that. I think that's what really takes one performer to like a next level, is being able to channel whatever's needed, you know, whether it's our ancestors through the dance, or whether it's you know, some kind of clown that needs to come in to make everybody laugh, or whether it's like an old intense gypsy woman that needs to come in and tell the people what they need to shift in their life. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it was such an amazing thing. And I used a lot of masks when I first started performing and started learning about the power of masks. And that was a lot in the beginning stages. And that just takes away your whole entire ego, you know, like your ego's just gone, and you become the mask, and then you see through the eyes of the mask what it's doing to the people. And it's just, it can be so intense and deep and ancient and just mind-blowing what masks do for the performance itself, and then the energy of it connecting the people and the audience together. It's just, it's like magic, you know, it's like magical performance alchemy. So I spent a lot of time with that, like masks, in my early years, and just you know, I used a lot of makeup when I was younger too, like a lot of tribal makeup, and and just, it taught me how to connect with the people better. Um, it taught me,
It's interesting. Can I interject for a moment?
yeah,
I'm just struck by how much you're talking about these different characters coming through you as a channel. It reminds me of archetypes. And nowadays in the coaching that I do and a lot of psychology, people are kind of touching base with these ideas that we embody. They're basically characters, locations, sacred things that we attach meaning to, because our brain is like a giant computer and it puts things into different boxes. So if you actually get in touch with what are those boxes, what are those categories that you're creating, and how do they impact your life, transformation and change can come out of it. And as a performer, you're touching into those different characters, those different box categories, archetypes, call it what you want. And you're becoming an access point for the viewers that are engaging with your performance. So I'm excited.
yes, that is definitely what's happening. I'm glad that we're on the same wavelength, and it's really nice to talk to you about this. It's really sweet. I think it's something that is left out with some performers, and they, you know, they haven't gotten to the point of being able to do that yet. But when they do, it really, that's when the work starts. That's when, like, you know, you have the patterns, and a lot of the technical people are doing the patterns, and they're shifting people's brains. And then when you take those patterns and you combine it with the archetypes and combine it with the dance and the music and channeling spirit, then it's just like unstoppable. I mean, it's incredible what can happen. But I would like to touch back on my relationship with performance, if that's okay, because I think this is something good that people should know. So because I've been doing it for so long, you know, I've had periods where I was frustrated, you know, like, where I remember, so in the beginning, you know, when I started performing, there was no computer, there was no YouTube, none of that stuff. So I just had to do everything just by what's coming out of me, right? And what I see with my friends, my two other girlfriends that were spinning fire at the time, they're the only people I knew spinning fire. And when it started growing and my performance started shifting, there started, like, you know, like YouTube came in and all these things came in, and people, and I started being able to learn from other people. And it was interesting because there was this like wave of insecurity and wave of excitedness that I had, because that meant if all these other people were fire dancing, then all of a sudden there's competition for gigs, right? And having the competition come in was really great because it pushed me to be better, but it also kind of gave me this weird pressure to like be more technical, which was good, but also at the same time it kind of took me away from myself for a little bit. And and then I started at some point I started feeling, because I was doing so many gigs all the time, I started getting a little jaded from it too, you know, just being like, okay, I need to go make money, like, because that, you know, I was doing it for my art form and for my spiritual quest, and like me to have but also as a job where that was my sole income for years and years and years. I have other things I do, but yeah. So I got a little jaded there, and I got really tired of doing makeup. So I started like easing back on the makeup, you know, And then there was a wave of all of a sudden later that came that was interesting, where I got to travel. And then I was like, whoa, this is amazing. I'm starting to travel and people are inviting me places. I'm getting to go to New Zealand, Japan, Mexico, South America because of fire dancing. And I was riding a super high wave because I love to travel. So that part was great. And then there was another part where later, a little later, there were some girls that hit the scene that were new fire dancers that started wearing super skimpy clothes and like changed the fashion of the fire dancing performance scene, where it was like skimpier and skimpier and more sexual. And back then we did so many crazy tricks that we needed leather pants and arm protectors. And so I was kind of like, wow, okay, in order to get these gigs, I'm gonna have to change my style just a little bit to be able to get also the gigs where they require more sexy. I've always put sensuality, but there was just this like weird sexy thing where everybody's like, we want sexy, you know, and I felt, you know, I'm pretty sexy in my black leather pants, but when they were seeing other girls, they were hiring them. And so that was an interesting time for me too, because I was like, this is so weird. But I learned how to adapt that into my style, and I learned how to make it so I could do it and still feel comfortable and still have it be my style and not have to be so overt, you know. Or if I needed to be overt, I could, you know, like I have some pretty sexy stuff that I do that's, you know, like kind of way out of the box, like the fire boobs and stuff like that. But those are more silly. I like to add sexy and silly, and then I don't feel as, I feel like it's a powerful combo, sexy and silly, because then it's not so pretentious or something, you know. And then now it's this is the last part. Um, I have this other troupe that I've been working with called Solar Rain, and we've been getting these huge shows at the Texas Renaissance Festival, and we're performing for 10,000 people every Saturday and Sunday night for 2 months, and it's huge, and you have to fill an arena. So my performance stuff now is like figuring out how to make costumes that still pop when you have 10,000 people, figuring out a storyline and how I can collaborate all these only 8 fire dancers to fit into one huge gigantic space, figuring out new fire tools that are huge and that will be able to be seen, and more dramatic moves. So right now I'm kind of in this like super creative changing mode on how to do like a bigger show with less people. And so yeah, that's kind of that's it in a nutshell.
Wow, it really went through phases. You went through from performance, and it's like a personal thing, exploratory thing. You're connecting with your local community. It's all, what can I do? How can I share this? And then it went to a place of, wow, there's a larger worldwide community, and now we can see each other and connect with each other in the virtual space, this new space. But pressure came from that. And then it seemed to like push you to grow at the same time, and allowed you to like go global with your performance and travel. I'd love to
Yes.
hear more about that part of your journey too, about like how you transitioned into traveling and what brought those things about. And then, but
Okay.
after traveling, you like came back to this period of basically noticing that expectations of the changing fads, basically, what do the people hiring want, and what are they seeing out there as possibilities? How does that impact how I present myself now when it comes to image? Whole other topic. Side
Yes.
reference, if you haven't heard the episode where I was talking about women and juggling with Josie May last episode, please check it out. We talk a little bit more about like some of these image expectations with women and how pervasive they are within the circus, juggling, flow arts, fire arts, performance community, and how they impact us. And then now you're in like expansive mode. You're going bigger and creating new props. I'm
Yeah.
curious to know what's going to happen from here and what your vision is going forward.
So I am in my 50s. So, you know, I have realized that I'm still super strong and I can do this, but I don't know how much longer I'm going to do this for in the way I've been doing it. So these expansive shows that we're doing with Solar Rain, um, they're so wonderful and so creative, and there's like almost like little storylines, and we can be fairies and elves and warriors and all this, and I'm really into this right now, and I want to keep that up, but I just don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to keep up that caliber of a show physically. I mean, I'm doing good and I got to work out a lot, and I still feel really strong, and I feel like I will be able to do this for a while, but I don't know if I want to be exposed to the fuel for that much longer. The fuel is like a whole other topic for me. So I've been trying to figure out, yeah, what is next for me. And I've been doing a lot of Tai Chi lately. Like, I'm really into Tai Chi and I love martial arts. So I'm thinking that maybe in the future, for myself, not necessarily, thinking about Solar Ring or Sangre Del Sol, um, but just thinking about me for like career wise and where I'm headed is maybe soon like teaching workshops that involve Tai Chi and flow arts and tea ceremony and some Chinese qigong. So I want to head towards the healing arts with it. And I just want to say that like it already being fire spinning, I feel it hasn't really been categorized in that yet, but I feel like fire spinning is a healing art. I mean, it's in its own right, especially if you do the things that we talked about earlier with the mixing the light and the patterns, and then bringing in the archetypes and ancestors and your intention. The fire can really heal people and transform people, and without them even knowing it, they're just sitting there watching, being kind of hypnotized, and then it's like, so yeah, so I think that's kind of like where it's going to for me, is like mixing Tai Chi and flow arts, tea, qigong, and maybe probably doing like workshops or online things. I have a Tai Chi teacher who's working with me, and we've started formulating some stuff, and we really want to also keep the elements, and especially fire in there with the workshop. So I'll keep everybody posted.
Thank you. That's so exciting to know that you're thinking about, as you go forward, how to stay connected to the community, how to stay involved with healing, and also take the other interests you've been exploring and being drawn to and take them further and share them with others through teaching. And
Yes.
I'm fascinated. You touched upon how, like, given where you're at, that, you're 50 now, or you're over 50, like, this has been such a part of your life and a long journey with nuances up and down. I've noticed that, at least in some communities that I've explored, it's hard to locate or find older fire dancers. And I want to know how you stayed involved and active in the fire dancing community over the years, and what's been successful for maintaining participation and engagement from others in the community.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess my very first answer to that is I stayed active in the community a lot just by doing gigs, like just lots of gigs, lots and lots of gigs. And that helped me stay active, and some of the gigs were festivals. Some of them were flow arts festivals, flow arts festivals are really great for staying connected to everybody. So either participating in a flow arts festival, or just going to a flow arts festival, or teaching. I've taught at a few flow arts festivals. Those are great ways to stay connected. Also, usually when you go into a city where flow arts are popular, there's usually a flow jam night. So, going to the flow jam nights or the spin jam nights. I did those a little more when I was younger, and I've been kind of laying off. I have a lot of other things that I have in my life that are super important now, and that I want to give time to. So I don't go to the flow nights as much, but I still show up every once in a while. I love them. And teaching, like, just I teach a lot, and just getting the word out that I'm teaching. Also, one of my favorite ways to stay connected is taking classes from different generation fire spinners than me, because they're so good, and they're so technical, and they're my teachers now. And so that's one of my favorite, is taking classes from all of the other generation, the younger generation fire spinners. I love that one. That's one of my favorite ways to stay connected, because then I'm like like there's just this beautiful exchange of younger and older, and they have they can like you said, there's not that many older fire dancers, and so it's kind of, an anomaly for them, or something like, wow, you've been doing it for how long? And then there's this beautiful exchange. And also I stay connected by social media, which is something there wasn't in the beginning. Yeah, big time social media, Facebook, Instagram. I'm not that great on Instagram, but and just watching YouTube videos and getting to know, who are the top teachers right now, and just kind of knowing the lingo, keeping myself up on the names of the moves, because when we first started, we had to name the moves on our own because there was no computer and nobody else we knew. So we would name all the moves, like the 3-beat weave, we used to call the spider, which I think is really cool because it's kind of similar since it's a weave, spider. Um, so staying up on the names is a good way, I have noticed, to just sort of stay connected, and yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, so going to the events that you can in person, continuing with your performances, teaching, just staying plugged into where the community is currently in your area have been ways you've been maintaining that connection. And I really love what you mentioned about the name shifting. I know that like name standardization has been a big topic among different people, particularly for like newly created props or like prop hybrids. I was talking with Ryan Fish about booking at one point, and he was like, wow, when I tackled the names and trying to like standardize them, that was a whole beast. um, I'd love to hear some other of the names that you had for favorite moves when you were first learning, like your own names for them.
Oh my gosh, that's so crazy. We had this one called the Sidewinder, which I think is, I think everybody calls it a fountain or a type of fountain, but we called it the Sidewinder. And we also, what's crazy is we did call this the butterfly. We, that was the, that ended up being the same name. Yeah, and then we had the weaves, the backwards and forward weave. And then we called this the helicopter. I mean, I think people still call that the helicopter, the, on top of your head butterfly.
Mhm.
Um,
That's so
we had a,
interesting.
yeah, yeah.
And, are there certain moves that you feel you connect to more in a spiritual way or as like an access point into your dance and performance?
Yes, definitely. Some of the most powerful moves for me are being able to do something back, being able to do a move backwards and forwards, because then when I can do a move backwards and forwards, I can start spinning. Like I can start spinning my body, right? So there's something that happens because if you just know a move just forward or just backwards, you're not able to fully surroundly flow into that move in every single position, right? So so it's not necessarily just one move in general, it's learning moves backwards and forwards. And also, I mean, I've got to say, any of the weaves and all the different varieties of the weaves with doing circles are so powerful, so powerful. Even a simple move like, I know, like the corkscrews, they're, I think they might be called something different actually, but
I call them corkscrews. Yeah, I'm with you.
okay, okay, yeah. So like the corkscrews, when you learn how to do the corkscrews and extend your arm and be able to do that constantly spinning, there's this vortex that opens up. You can feel it. It's just like, comes down through your head and like through your body down through the ground. And I mean, obviously it's a corkscrew, right? So yeah, moves like that, just where you can spin your body and spin the move.
I love your awareness of the feeling your body as it relates to your physicality of using your body. It's just such a fun way to look at dancing from another level, and the visualizations are really strong in my mind. But I'm a very visual person, so if you're a more auditory learner or you're more kinesthetic, some of these may go over your head, but you may have other ways that you interact with moves, and it would be really cool if you guys want to share online or via email to artfulpodcast.com what those are. Feel free to toss them our way. I am really, really curious to know a little bit more about like the key historical moments in fire dancing as it's emerged in modern day, like here in the United States and also in the world, because you did travel a lot, from your experience.
Okay, so is your question like key historical experiences for the whole and also for me, or are you just talking about the whole?
For the whole and you, because
For
for
both.
anything,
Okay.
yeah, for anything, it's like the general experience connects with the personal experience, and I want to acknowledge that like whatever you say is also coming from what you're aware of, and we're not speaking for everybody here.
Okay, so definitely Burning Man. I mean, definitely like, Burning Man has been just like this huge thing for fire spinners. And my first Burning Man, I was spinning fire back then, and there were only like 15 fire spinners spinning around the man. I mean, that's how long I've been doing this. And then I just watched it grow and grow and grow. And every time I would take somebody to Burning Man, they would see the fire dancing and see not just the fire dancing, but the power of the sacred ceremony of the Burning Man, and it would just do something to them. And then all of a sudden, people would start want to spin fire. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I want to spin fire!" And I was like, "Well, of course you do, right? Of course you do." So Burning Man is one of them. Definitely here in the States, fire drums. I mean, fire drums is just like, it was like, I've been to a few fire drums and I've taught at fire drums, and it was like the most amazing festival that connects so many people. I think it's still going on, and it's like boot camp for fire dancers. And it's also a place where, I don't know if it's still like this, but when I went the few times, my heart was so joyed that there weren't a bunch of drunk people at this festival, that everybody was spinning and that they didn't need to drink. They just wanted to spin. And I felt like it just created this beautiful vortex, and just so much power there. I love that place. Also, I think Home of Poi definitely has completely revolutionized and got the word out all over, all over. Home of Poi has been amazing for historical changes in that. Also, YouTube, I think YouTube, right? Having YouTube come about was definitely historical. So now all of a sudden, you have the school of YouTube, and you can learn anything you want on YouTube. And that really changed everything in fire dancing. And then also social media. Social media changed the costumes and the trends, and people following each other's trends instead of just doing their own thing. That definitely shifted, but also there's so much education on social media and connectedness. So, and then as far as out of something I wanted to mention is, it's a school in Costa Rica, La Escuela del Sol. So yeah, he's hosted some really great teachers like Zan Moore and Nick Woolsey. And then that brings me to Zan Moore and Nick Woolsey. Like, I think historically, having Nick Woolsey's video come out, the Play Poi, and also the Encyclo Poi Dia, I feel like those were historical events too. I wish I knew of more international people, to say how historical, what they did, but I don't, unfortunately. But it's just so big in the States. It felt like it was bigger in the States than any place else. And now every place else is like, it's getting really big there.
You mentioned Home of Poi, and there's a whole story there that connects to you and your personal journey. And if we go back, there was a time when Home of Poi was like basically the central hub of the online flow community. It was I think it was pre YouTube, and I think it was definitely pre social media, and at least in the sense of like Facebook, Instagram, and stuff. And there was an international flow contest, and something happened with this contest. I'd love to hear in your own words what inspired you to enter the contest, where you drew your inspiration from for it, and what was your reaction to the response of your submission?
Okay. Oh, that's an exciting question. Thanks for asking that. Yeah, so I was at just like a flow jam here in Austin. It was just a few of us, and they were telling me about the Home of Poi contest. I didn't really know about it, and they were like, you should enter it. And I was like, I don't know. I feel about contests. And And then they said, well, you know, you can win like, it was something like $500 worth of free fire tools. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm in. Like, you know, like once I was like, okay, yeah,
Ooh, sign me
$500.
up.
Right. And so exactly. And so they actually filmed me that night and they sent it in for me. I didn't even have to do anything. They just really wanted me to enter this contest. And because they told me about the prize, I was just like, okay, because they kind of had to twist me up my arm a little bit until they told me about that. And then, so then I ended up, yeah, I won. Oh my God, it's so crazy. I ended up winning. And then shortly after that, I I was invited to New Zealand, and well, actually, I was invited to New Zealand by a troupe called El Circo, and to go to New Zealand and perform in New Zealand. And so we went to New Zealand, and at the same time, the Malcolm, the head guy from Home of Poi, found out I was there, and he was like, "Oh, let me fly you over to Christchurch, which is like another part of New Zealand, and it's a weird name, right?" And so, and I'll pay you money to do a video and all that. So he paid me some money to do a video, and it was really cool video. And it ended up being on a safety video or something with the interview and all that. And then shortly after that, I started getting emails from all over the world. I mean, I was getting emails from Turkey, Spain, Japan, China, like people all over the world just saying, oh, it's so inspiring, so inspiring. And so that like really changed my life. It was weird. I didn't really, I mean, I went from just like spinning in Austin to all of a sudden like people worldwide knowing me. And it was really bizarre and amazing and humbling and just like, whoa. And then after that, I started getting invited to teach at festivals, like to teach at fire drums and um, um, the one in Oregon, Pacific Fire, and then I love Pacific Fire, and then I got flown to Japan to be a judge for a contest. Like I guess I was really big in Japan. Isn't that like a movie or something? Big in Japan. And whenever I got there, it was so cute. They were like, Seiji, Seiji. They called me Seiji, and I felt like a cartoon character. I was like, this is awesome. I love these people. Japan is amazing. And yeah, they flew me over to judge for the Mount Fuji Fire Festival. It was awesome. And then I went back to Japan and I was teaching too for a while. And then I got flown to Peru to do fire dancing with these gypsy people. And then yeah, so I got to travel a bunch from that. And then yeah, so it was a fun ride.
That's so interesting. So basically, by getting that public exposure through Home of Poi, and then also having the chance where you actually got to connect with the director and like take your story a step further, you got connected to people from all over the world, from Japan to Fiji to places you probably, I'm not even sure, did you know that there were flow communities in these spots at the time?
I had no idea, especially I didn't have an idea how big it was in Japan. Like Japan is they're super into fire dancing. And that's when I got to meet Utah. I love Utah. And then there was this other fire dancer named He, who was like so crazy. He was so good. And they had a whole different style there. And then in New Zealand, I mean, I kind of had an idea that there were spinners in New Zealand because that's where Home of Poi is. But when I went to New Zealand, I got to really be saturated in the culture of the Maori people and got to really find out where poi comes from, and and to see actual Maori people doing poi, and then to see the style that was over in New Zealand, because Japan, it was very martial arts, super martial arts, and very Japan is just like they have the stoic kind of style too, or it's just like really out there. And then New Zealand had this like really interesting flow where it was, I think trance was really in back then, and all the festivals were playing trance, and all the spinners were everything was just trance, and they wore the big pants with the bell bottoms, and it was like almost like floating. Their style was almost like floating and just super fluid. Yeah, so it was cool to see all the styles, and I didn't know that it was so big in a lot of places. Like Peru, it was not big. I didn't see any fire dances in Peru, but we did all the fire dancing.
What's your experience teaching been like when you first started? How did it look and how's it evolved?
Yeah, when it first started, it was just one-on-one because I was the only person that I knew besides Aurora, the girl that showed me some moves. I was the only person I knew fire dancing, and that's it. And she left, and so it was just me. That was it. And then some other girls started doing it, and we became friends, and we just started teaching each other. So back then, it was just community, like just building a few fire dances at a time. Then the teaching went from that to kind of, oh, and there was no money involved. And then it kind of went to a place of, from there, like pretty much into festivals, teaching at the festivals, and teaching some private lessons here in Austin. And I traveled to New York and started doing workshops. I did a few workshops in New York. So I had to go from just free teaching community into learning how to be a teacher that teaches like a one-on-one more in a more professional manner, and learn how to the biggest thing was learning how to break down the moves and be able to teach them in at least 5 different ways, because everybody's a different learner. So some people, they, are visual, some people are auditory. And so I started learning how to teach things from all different directions. And then I started realizing that that's how I could be a good teacher, was learning that. And then also expanding my knowledge. Whenever I started teaching, I started having to expand my knowledge so that I was a good teacher. So I kept learning as I was teaching. And then when I started getting into teaching workshops, then I had to realize I needed to figure out how to handle more people and how I can keep more people focused, how to reel everybody in, because it's totally different when you have a larger amount of people. And then like at Fire Drums, when I had like 50 people in one class, that was a whole different experience. And fortunately, I did a choreographing class, and I had music and a choreographed thing planned, and it kept everybody focused because of the music. And and also learning, I really started learning that I really needed to teach people how to take care of their bodies. So teaching people about how to warm up and how to stretch and do yoga moves. And because I was older than them, I started feeling the repercussions of the spinning sooner, and so I started really learning how to be more in my body and show all the different stretches that all the spinners need and really get a good warm up. So it evolved to that. And yeah, so I still do, I still teach at festivals, but more lately it's just been like one-on-one lately. Yeah. But hopefully with the Tai Chi and the flow arts, it'll come back to more.
I love that you mentioned that it's really evolved depending on the size of class you have, and the different learning styles. I was thinking when you were talking about the 5, I was like, why 5? And it's like, oh yeah, 5 senses. That kind of makes sense. And then it made me think about how there's often this switching of body part awareness when you're working on different moves, dance, spinning, circus arts. You're kind of switching between, am I focused on my fingers? Am I focused on my wrist? Am I focused on my elbow? Am I focused on the object itself, or am I focused on the object's pattern in space? Or am I focused upon my arms movements forwards or backwards? And as you switch between these, you get a different experience of what you're doing. And
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to add really quick, I think it's important too, is that when I hit the scene and started teaching, I saw a lot of people teaching just technical, and I wanted to offer something that was a little different because I wanted people to come to my class, right? And so I started really leaning to be one of the teachers that taught how to move your body with the poi, like how to do dance with the poi, how to be able to move your feet and do spins and do barrel turns and all kinds of stuff with your body. And I still am pretty known for that. And it was really great because I would get a lot of females coming to my classes, because that's the females want to move more, they want to like really move all over the place and add their belly dancing or their African dancing or whatever dance they do, ballet, to it. And so that was one of the things that came about in teaching for me too, is just really getting people to move their bodies.
yes, I love that you're aware of what is out there, how people have been spinning, and what people are wanting, and you're looking at what you're naturally drawn toward in spinning. It sounds like a lot of movement because of your dance background across a variety of styles. You have that base knowledge in order to combine the two. Now you're not teaching as much except one-on-one, and I'm guessing it probably has something to do with the fact that you don't only have one fire troupe that you work with, but two. Will you tell us a little bit more about the founding of Sangre del Sol and what inspired you to begin that creation process of a troupe?
So originally, I had started a troupe name. It was called Tantien, which kind of played on the triple warmers that you have in your belly, you know, the fire that you carry in your belly. And those were three girls. It was three girls. So we thought, you know, we were like the triple warmers. So that was our first troupe. And then we kind of broke off. And then I started, because we started that together. But then I broke off from that and I started Sangre del Sol. And I just started kind of watching around to see who was fire spinning, and there weren't a whole lot of fire spinners back then. So, but you know, I just sort of, I felt like I kind of handpicked people, and just started working with some people that I knew were really amazing dancers. And there was a new girl that moved to town, and she was Katie Pride. She was a belly dancer, and she just shifted. Sangre del Sol got really into belly dancing when we first started, and then we did some African dancing for a while. So we got really into kind of African dancing and fire, and we would like have, my friend Natalie and I would have our tops, no shirts, but like mud and like all this African paint. We do fire dancing and like shirtless with like mud, and it was really fun, and it was very primal. But yeah, forming it was interesting because, you know, as the years go by, I've noticed people drop off. They end up not wanting to do fire spinning anymore. They find a career. One of them went on to be a blacksmith, a female blacksmith. And one of them, you know, became a mom, and more than one, you know, a few of them became moms. And so the one thing that stayed kind of consistent with Sangre del Sol is me, you know, and I just kept finding other fire dancers. And so it was definitely a process of, you know, getting these routines that we had down, but then I'd have people leave, and then we couldn't use those routines anymore, and we'd have to come up with new routines, which is fun, which is great. And then, you know, really, like, one of my favorite times of Sangre del Sol, I think, was when we had Katie Pride and Kat and all these girls that we belly danced together, and we started doing swords and all kinds of stuff, and our shows just went from being average to being like, holy shit good, you know, like really good, really a lot of depth. And then I started getting into more like silly, creative Nightmare Before Christmas kind of shows where we would build big props. We had huge Jack in the Boxes where a Jack in the Box would pop out with flaming fingers. And the whole set would glow under a black light. So we did a lot of black light fire creative shows where there were like pirate ships we built, and labyrinths and all kinds of characters. So we got more into like storytelling, which was really cool because building the big props was really fun. And then those couple crews left, and then I got Christopher Bailey in Sangre del Sol. I had met him, his nickname is Robo, and I had met him at Fire Drums, and he is like amazing. And he moved to Austin, and I immediately called him and was like, hey, you want to come be in Sangre del Sol with me? And once he hit it, it just changed completely different too. And him and I started doing a lot of gigs and bringing other people in, and he just bumped the energy up to like the max. I mean, that guy is like a creative dynamo, and he knows how to go from character to character. So he was one of the first people that I met as a fire dancer that was kind of equivalent to my chameleon thing that I have going. Like, he can do any character. He's like any music. I mean, we can do hillbilly to clown to serious to gypsy to African, and he is able to move through that. And once I found like a fire dancer that I could dance with like that, it got really fun. Like, it got it got really, really fun, and people started giving us more and more tips, and he's been doing it almost as long as me. So it was nice having someone who's so energetic and so creative and such a badass in the fire spinning world to work with, and it just changed everything. And then Solar Rain came about shortly after that. So Solar Rain, I had done a show with this girl named Audie, and she was learning a lot from me, the business and all the ins and outs and some safety stuff and just spinning itself. And so she created her own troupe called Solar Rain, which I thought was interesting because I was like, okay, that's pretty much kind of the same meaning as Sangre Del Sol, and it starts with an S. So I kind of was like, okay, I know I got a little nervous, but then she hired me to be in her troupe, and I was like, oh my gosh, good move, thank you. It made me feel very honored as a like an elder fire spinner, and then she scored the Texas Renaissance gigs, which just took everything to a whole other level of doing shows for 10,000 people at a time. Like it just, and so I'm really into Solar Rain right now. Sangre del Sol does more of the gigs here in Austin, like the local gigs and corporate gigs, but Solar Rain does the Renaissance festivals. So
Mhm. It sounds like such a different experience to first of all have like a fire dancing partner in Sangre del Sol that's like the same energy, enthusiasm, and creative juices flowing, this like feedback loop you have going on with Rovo. And then
yeah.
I'm fascinated with what the experience is for you to perform for like 10,000 people. That number is mind-boggling to me. What what's your process pre-performance look like? Do you do some kind of grounding ritual, energizing thing? How do you deal with it psychologically to perform before that many people? And also when you're out there, how's it feel?
Okay, those are great questions. I love your questions. Okay, so pre-show and even before pre-show, it's a lot of preparation. I mean, you got to be grounded. You have to be very, very grounded. You can't be all nervous and crazy because we are using such large quantities of fuel and such large, like the wicks we use are gigantic. I have these huge fire wings that I do at the same time I'm wearing a crown. I mean, this stuff is like crazy out there, dangerous if you let it be. So you have to stay really grounded, right? So I make sure pre-show, I do lots of yoga. I mean, I stretch. I make sure I eat really well. And actually, fire dancing has really helped me to eat really well because you can't eat a bunch of junk food and be a 50-year-old fire dancer. It just doesn't work. I started eating well a long time ago because of the fuel. The fuel is so yucky, so I have to do chlorophyll and greens and all kinds of stuff to cleanse my body of the fuel. Then also I'd meditate. I definitely do meditations beforehand, and I sometimes will do a little bit of qigong to help me get some energy, and because sometimes I'm tired, help me get energy, or Tai Chi or something. And then also, I always check all my equipment, and I'm making sure everybody checks all their equipment to make sure that all the connectors are safe. And then also right before the show, we all huddle up and usually do like, I don't really want to say prayer, but it kind of is like a prayer. We set our intention and we take deep breaths together. And then sometimes we'll pull a rune right before the show and see what it's representing and what we need to put out there. We say different intentions. Like one of our ones is like to keep us safe and to help us connect with the audience and to bring inspiration into their hearts. That's another really big one. And just to call on whatever ancestors or guides that we have. It gets pretty oogie boogie before our show, but all of our people in our group they like that, and that's what works for us. So just having also like taking 3 breaths together as a troupe, or making some sort of sound, like whether it's screaming or oming or something, we do all of that. So there's a lot of preparation, and also just like strength training for shows like that, because you have to run super far amounts like across this huge arena. It's where they ride all the jousting horses and stuff. So it's a huge arena. So that's, as far as that goes, that's the prep part. And then as far as shows like that, how they make me feel, oh my God. They make me feel sometimes like I want to burst out of my body with joy. Sometimes they make me feel like I'm the most blessed person in the world to be able to touch the hearts of 10,000 people in 20 minutes. Um, I feel like they help me so much to be able to like connect like spirit and myself and everybody. And it's like an opportunity to connect. And when you have that, those shows where you're just like connecting, it is probably one of the best feelings I've ever felt. It's like cosmic. It's unexplainable. It's very cosmic and very heart opening. Also, sometimes I feel upset. You know, like sometimes after a show, I'll be kind of critical. Like last show we did, I started the whole show off with a flaming arrow. So I had these flaming wings on, and then I had a flaming arrow, and it's at nighttime, and I had to hit a target, and I made this like this God's eye, those little things that you weave. I did a God's eye out of Kevlar. And so I shot the God's eye and lit that on fire. And then we did a dance around it, like a goddess invocation dance around the God's eye. So there's a lot of intention, and I missed my target one night, and I didn't hit it, and the guy had to light it with the thing, and it worked out fine. But I remember that time, like when you're in front of 10,000 people and you're trying to hit a target in the dark with fire, you have to have nerves of freaking steel. I mean, you have to just be like so centered, you know, and also you have to be humble and just realize that like if something goes like perceivably wrong, just go with it and it's okay. And if you mess up on your choreography, just breathe and get back up there and don't even worry about it. And you know, it makes you feel amazing, and also it can make you feel like really just like, whoa, I gotta go back to my trailer and sit down. And tired. Like it makes you feel super exhausted later. So we usually do a little thing at the end. I love this. It's like a qigong practice, because if I don't do it, I feel more tired. So at the end of the show, we actually close, like it's almost like we open a sacred circle, but then at the end we actually close the sacred circle. And it's like you open up your pores and you breathe all of your energy that you put out there back into your body through your open pores. So you just sort of visualize your pores being really open, and you just pull all that energy back in, and then just give thanks and close the circle. And if we do that normally for shows like that, I feel much better afterwards. You know, I can like not be as tired or worn out, you know. So yeah.
I love that you are able to like regather the strands of energy that have been put out there into the world through your performance in an intentional way with your whole group after the performance, kind of like close out from the experience.
Yes, it's a beautiful, beautiful experience.
And you know, I was gonna ask you about like how do you listen to your heart and listen to your intuition and your voice, but I feel like you just answered those questions in a beautiful way by all of this intentionality of how do I go into it in a way that's grounded with myself? What are the body practices? What are the mind practices? And there's variability in there. It sounds like you've experimented with different ones and found the ones that work for you as an individual and the ones that work for you as a group. What advice would you give to people who are searching around for finding those practices to interconnect with their inner experience in a way that allows them to be wonderful performers?
Okay. Well, you know, everybody's different. And, you know, some people are unable to sit down and meditate because they're really squirrely. And I've noticed a lot of people that are younger in the flow arts community, they're very squirrely, you know, they want to move. And that's why they're doing it, because it is sort of a moving meditation. I mean, poi is or staff or whatever flow arts, it's a moving meditation. But a lot of them, I've noticed, can't really sit down and like be quiet with themselves. So definitely, you know, doing stuff like the qigong practices, where you actually are moving and breathing at the same time, I think are really good for people who are squirrely and can't do the meditation. Also, you know, getting in touch with just sitting, if they can, and being quiet and listening to what is good for their body. You know, obviously yoga is good, but I've noticed there's some guys out there, like all the girls seem to love yoga, but there's some guys that are just like, just don't like yoga. And so, okay, well then just call it sports stretching. You know what I mean? Like, do some sports stretches. Put your arm against the wall and stretch your arm against the wall. And if you don't know how to do that, then go to a gym or something and have someone show you some stretches, or I'm sure there's online stuff. Also, fire dancing causes a lot of heat, and there's a lot of toxicity involved. And learning how to transmute that heat and toxicity it's a feat in its own. And one way I do it is through lots of cooling foods and drinking lots of water. I see so many fire dancers out there that are just like doing fire dancing all night long at festivals, and I don't see them drink any water. I'm just like, whoa, you need to slow down and bring the watermelon bring the water element in. Like, it's super important to find a balance between like the earth, air, the water, and the fire. And I think a lot of fire dancers are just like so fire oriented. They're like these fire sprites that just want to go all night, but then they forget, like, they have a body. Like, be in your body. Like, when you're fire dancing, you should be in your body. Now, you can go cosmic with it and channel and go other places with it, but you still have to be tethered to the earth a little bit. Otherwise you're just going to fly away. So learning how to do grounding exercises, whatever that may be. Some people, it might be screaming. Some people, it might be stomping their feet into the ground. Some people, it might be like pulling, before you go on, just pulling the energy, like breathing the energy up your left leg all the way through your head and all the way down to your right leg, and envisioning roots in the ground. That's another good one. So just, really searching for what is going to work for them. And, just, you could plug in spiritual practices on YouTube, or you can just ask around. And I know there's enough fire spinners that know somebody there's teachers out there, especially in the fire spinning community, that are, really getting into all of the different aspects of it. And even flow festivals are teaching meditations and sound healing and stuff like that. So also another good one, if you're a nervous performer, if you're really nervous and you can't get past the nerves, I always tell them, make a mask, put on a mask, and it will go away. And then that will get them used to performing, because they won't be them anymore. They'll become somebody else. And that's why people get nervous most of the times, because they're afraid of judgment, criticism. There's some sort of fear, or they're afraid of showing who they are. They're afraid of like really shining. And sometimes if you just take away your ego, and then you can do whatever you need to do, or whatever the universe wants to put out there with you in a collaboration.
I love all of the examples that you gave, that you were really concrete and specific about some of the different visualizations, the groundings that you can use, the ways that you can actually physically get in touch with your body. Because I kind of see groundings like different categories. There's ones where you actually do something physically. So like yoga, qigong, the stretching, call it what you want. You're moving your body to get in touch with your body. And then you have visualizations. You're in your mind and you're imagining. You're using your imagination as a vehicle in order to get in touch with these different ways of centering yourself. And then also there's breathing exercises where you're literally sitting and getting in touch with where's the flow going through your body. How is it interacting with your bloodstream? How is it coming in through your nose, out through your mouth? Now we're getting more specific, and it's a little bit meditation focused. And then there's meditation itself. I was really struck when you're talking about the ego and getting curious about, like, do you think this is the biggest deterrent or the greatest challenge for folks for performing?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I do. I absolutely do. And, we all have ego. It's there for a reason. And it really does get in people's way. So, if you're someone who's about to go perform, and you're just like, it's all it's all about you. It's good to remember that it's also about all the other people out there that are fire dancing, and it's about all the other people that are watching, and it's about the universe, and we're all connected and we're all one. And just to remember, like, it's not really all about you. Like, even though this is doing something beautiful for you, that it's not all about you. And also, I think, ego gets in a way also in a like when you're shy too, because you're the ego is afraid of being judged or criticized, or just afraid of being who you are, you know. And when you're able to just really let go of that and just humble yourself, it helps a lot. And the way that I do that, the way that I've done that, and the way I like to teach it is, before you go out there, if you are a performer or if you're just at a flow jam and you want to get out there and spin, you know, the fire, if you have fire, you're not inconspicuous anymore. You're being seen, you know. And so what I always tell them is just to remember, like, this is you're just like, remember, you're doing this for them, you know. Like when you it's like when someone's sick and you will take the time to like go and help them, you know, or someone falls down, you know, you forget about yourself for a minute and that you're late for a meeting, and you remember, oh, this person needs help. So you just kind of get yourself out of the way, you know what I mean? You just get yourself out of the way, and then you remember, like, oh, I'm going to do this for these people from my heart, and just pull yourself back to your heart and ground yourself back to the ground, and not so much in your head, right? So it's like heart and ground.
And how do you feel that fire interplays into this mix? Like, we've talked a little bit about the sacredness of fire, but I want to know what fire means for you.
You know, the fire to me represents like the hearth, you know. And a hearth technically is like the center of your home, where people gather and get warm and have food and abundance and enjoy family. And so that would be like the hearth inside of you is, you know, where it's like your center. It's the center of who we are. It lives in our heart. So it's very heart based. It's very love based. It's very transformative based. It's also, I've noticed for myself, it doesn't like to mess around. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's really playful, but when there's a message, it will not mess around, and it will just tell you pretty much right away. Like, I mean, sometimes I've looked into the fire, like when I'm looking into a campfire or like a bonfire or a ceremonial fire. Sometimes it will take a minute to tell you a story and to show you something. But with fire dancing, I've noticed it happens pretty fast. It's just like, it's very fast. So yeah, I think it's just, for me, it's represented abundance. And, you know, because like you cook food with fire, you gather around fire. Like when there's a fire, people are attracted to the fire. People get warmth around the fire, you know. So it's communal, it's love based, it's your hearth, it's the center of who you are. It's the center of the earth. I mean, right? Like they say that there's fire in the center of the earth. It's also up in the sky. It's what we worship. I mean, we're all like sun worshipers. What would we do without the sun? So it keeps us alive. It's like, it just keeps us going and keeps us alive. And it's also, for me, protection. Like I feel very protected. And I know that sounds strange because you can get burned from fire, but at the same time, I feel very protected. Like if I go to a party and there's a lot of people, you know, I'm very empathic. So sometimes being around a lot of people can be sort of overwhelming for me. And I'll just go straight to the fire. If there's a fire, I'm just like, I'm going straight to the fire. And that's my comfort zone. So for me, it protects me. It keeps me safe. Sure, it burns me sometimes, but that's a part of the learning of humility and learning how to like get rid of your anger and learning how to center. Because a lot of the times when you get burned, you're either going through some sort of cathartic emotion or something, or you're not centered. I mean, it could be something as easy as you're learning a new move. You know, that doesn't really have a bunch of meaning to it, because learning new moves with fire, you can get burned easily. But anyway, yeah. So that's pretty much what it means to me. It's provided so much for me, so much.
It's interesting the way you talk about fire because it reminds me of the way some people talk about flow state. And there's like this interplay between is the fire causing the flow state causing the fire, the interplay between is where the magic happens, the chicken and the egg scenario, right? And
Right.
yeah, I got this image as you were talking of how exciting it is as you're like coming to a jam or you're coming to a festival, to a group of people fire spinning, and you're walking up to join them, and there's just this like warm glow around everything, and the way people's faces look in the light. you really see them. You really see into their soul, like who they are and what they're experiencing at the moment, or who they're the character they're putting on at the moment as well.
Yes. Yeah, it's almost like you can see into their soul when they're fire dancing, right? It's like you can definitely see that person through the fire. It's beautiful.
And this is like we started at the personal, we took it to community. Now we're going bigger picture about like what the sacred means. Zooming back even further from that, what is your ideal world?
Whoa. Wow. This is good. Oh, well, I have to be honest and let you know, and I know this isn't really good for manifestation, but I'm not sure exactly. I know that there's some things that I would like more compassion and more understanding, and like for racism to be abolished, and for people to heal and work together. However, we live on planet Earth, and this is a very dense place, and it's full of polarity. So I don't think, honestly, that in the world as we know it, planet Earth, that it's like achievable to do stuff like that, because we're here to learn. And that racist that you had to deal with yesterday might have taught you patience and compassion, and maybe made you go deeper into your thinking and understanding on how they got there. Like, how did that person get there? Well, obviously it's some sort of trauma or some sort of like teaching from when they were young. Every behavior that's like perceived as bad or horrifying comes from trauma, or ancestral trauma, something. And so I think we're here learning, and for me to like figure out an ideal world where I could change this world would be like almost not accepting what I have in front of me. So I guess I kind of came to an answer while I'm talking to you. Is my ideal world is one where I can be accepting of whatever is thrown my way.
I love it. And the confidence in which you were able to walk into that question with, I don't know, but let me explore it, was really beautiful to watch unfold, because it's okay to not know an answer to questions. And what comes out of that can be really magical, because a lot of people have answered that question before, but I don't think I've heard someone actually acknowledge that, you know what, accepting what currently is and learning from it is the ideal world for me. And
Yeah.
it's exciting. I
Yeah.
meant, as someone
It
who
is. It is. I mean, that's a whole teaching in its own, and I still get upset about what's going on, and I still get bummed out or depressed, and I like, there's things that happen to me that I get really affected by still. And I think really my ideal world would be me just like breathing and just accepting and seeing things for what they are, that they're teachings, and that we're just working together to like learn and love, and just being in a place of just like compassion and love like all the time would be super dope.
I agree. My ideal world also, I think, is one where it is what it is currently and we can grow from it. So it's cool to hear you express that. What, if you were to step into my shoes, would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
Well, I actually think that you had touched on something a little bit about what it was like to be a female fire spinner and the journey of that.
In fire dancing as a woman, when you began, has it shifted and changed over the years? And if so, how?
Yes, and I love this question. This is beautiful. So when I first started doing it, I only knew women doing it. That was it. I mean, even when I went to Burning Man, it was mostly women. I mean, it was in the beginning, it was very female dominated, at least here in the States. Yes, very female dominated.
I had no idea.
Yes, yes. And it was such a beautiful thing to have all of these women dancing with fire and just learning how to be powerful and learning how to just like, it's such a great thing for women to do, because it's so empowering. It actually makes you feel powerful, and so many of us women have been stuck in this like victim mode for so long. Like, they have been victimized, you know, on so many levels. But then when you grow up and you start growing spiritually, you have to realize like you can't put yourself in that victim mode anymore. It's like almost like people are fighting to be like the victim, and that's such a place of like weakness. And you know, learning how to fire dance and learning how to like be my own boss and like the creator of these patterns, and to learn how to work with the fire and how we can have a copacetic relationship is like one of the most empowering things I feel like a woman can do. I know that that sounds out there, but whoa, some of these women that I have seen grow with fire dancing have just turned into just powerhouses, you know. And but then it started becoming a male dominated world. Like once the YouTube hit and there were like um, fire, almost like fire competitions and fire festivals, I noticed that the men just started dominating the scene and it started becoming super technical. So when fire dancing first started, it was all about flow, like it was very feminine and all about dancing and moving all parts of your body and you know all of that. And then the men hit the scene and it was like tech heads all the way. It was, you know, there were a few guys that were still, yeah, that were still like dancing with it, like Rovo's great, you know. And there was this guy named Meest, I remember, from France. I think his name was Meest. Oh my gosh, he was contact flow spinner. He was so good. Anyway, so yeah, the males started dominating it, and I noticed something happening with the women. The women started getting shy. It was crazy. So when the women used to be dancing and doing all this stuff, they didn't really have a problem getting up and getting out there. They would just do it. But then when the guys started dominating with the tech thing, the women were getting more and more shy. And I would be at a festival and we would start, you know, spinning on Friday night and it would be almost all men, like almost all men. And the women were just like, oh my gosh, I can't keep up with that technical stuff. So they started like judging themselves and they started being like, oh, I can't get out there, I'm too shy. And so I remember being at some of those festivals feeling the same way. Like I felt that too. And then I was just like, okay, pardon my expression, but I was like, fuck this. I am going out there. I'm just going to do it. And a lot of the times I was one of the first women to just get out there and do it. And then all of a sudden all the women would come out, you know, all like just having one woman being brave enough to just get out there. It brought all the women out there, you know. It was just like, it was very interesting. And then, you know, I talked a little bit about it earlier, how, you know, the scene changed to be very sexual, and like a lot of girls that I know were starting to get that were fire dancers started getting like breast implants and started wearing, you know, like booty shorts and, you know, really super like less clothes. And I remember for me that was terrifying because I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna get burned if I have to wear that stuff. You know, I don't know how I'm gonna keep myself from getting burned. Like my first thought was safety. And then so it went through that whole thing and it just got like kind of like sexualized. And I'm not saying that that's bad because I honestly do like sexy is awesome, you know, like I like sexy. And you know, sometimes being sexy makes a woman feel very powerful, you know, like just being like, I'm going to show you how sexy I am and this is who I am. And if that's who you feel you are, then do it, you know, do it. Like, I don't want to hold anybody back, but it was just sort of strange as a whole. It started becoming like, oh, we want a really sexy fire dancer. We're going to pay you this money to be on a podium in the sexy outfit. And like, you don't even have any room to dance, or you're just like, the sexy outfit, you know, you shake your booty or something. And it's just strange where I'm used to like, where we would just dance and feel free and do our thing, you know. Now it's like, oh, you're going to be put on this little podium and people are just going to look at you like you're a sexual object.
It sounds kind of like it switched from being like, you know, multiple books in the library, multiple styles and flares, and then all of a sudden it became like, oh, you're a woman? Okay, here's your book to follow.
Yeah. But you know what? Honestly, I didn't follow it. I have to say, I didn't follow it. I still did some of those gigs, but for some reason, I was able to manifest all the beautiful gigs for myself. And I just had to really just like, there were times when the competition got really high and I started getting nervous. And then I realized I was in a state of like thinking through lack or less than. And this is important, I think, I want the fire dancers out there to hear this, because this is like a prevalent problem in fire dancing, where when there's a lot of competition, people are like, oh, I'm competing here, and then I'm going to make my prices lower so I'll get the gig. And it's like, no, actually, you guys, like, charge what you're worth, and know that there's enough for everybody. Now, right now, COVID, it's different, we have something different going on, but no, when that's over, like, know that, think in abundance, like, there's always something out there for everybody. If that's what you want, if that's your path, you can find it. And so I was able to kind of like still be sexy, but still have my own flair to it. Like, I might have like, I might be super warrior, like barbarian sexy or something, like, so like, it's like different, or do like clown sexy, like that's sort of the characters that like to come out of me sometimes. It's like warrior sexy or clown sexy, or, and not just sexy for being sexy. Like, bring in bring in, if you feel like a kitty cat, then do a kitty cat thing with, like just build on it, instead of just being sexy for the sake, because somebody wants to pay you to be sexy. Like, be creative, like, yeah.
Prior to this interview, we were kind of teasing and going back and forth about our lighting setup and things, and talking about fierce, grungy mermaid. And now I'm thinking about like, oh, is there a future sexy character here?
Right? That's you should have seen it with the green background. My eyes kept turning green and then not green, and green and not green. It was so freaky looking.
Uh,
Yeah, why not? Be a fire mermaid, scary fire mermaid. That sounds great. I love it.
well, thank you so much, Sage. Before we go for today, is there anything else you want to add or share with listeners and viewers?
Yes, thank you for asking. And I just wanted to thank everybody out there for listening. And I wanted to thank you, Morgan, for wanting to hear what I have to say. It's beautiful. I feel super touched. Um, and I just would say, follow your heart, you guys. Like, keep that fire alive in your heart. Keep it alive. And like, I know we're going through some really intense times right now. And I've been through some stuff too lately, and it's like, wow, but just keep spinning and keep doing your flow arts. It's going to keep you healthy through this time. It's going to keep your mind healthy, your body healthy, your heart healthy. And just so keep spinning, keep flowing, and always remember to come from your heart, even when you don't want to. Just put yourself there the best that you can.
Thank you so much, Sage. And for everybody, just a quick reminder, there are links to Sage's website, social media, all of that in the show notes below. Like, please stay connected, see what she's doing, see what she's creating and what she's done in the past. It's beautiful stuff. And you can get inspiration from so many places. Do you want to keep the conversation going? Join the Art of Flow Facebook group to be part of a community discussing the episodes, sharing art, resources, and questions with each other. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.